it's a little bit like the seed that you plant in a ground, and not every seed grows in each ground. So you do, ideally, you find out throughout your career which ground you need in order to grow and develop and live up to your full potential that you have. And in the steps that I had, I encountered that I need quite a personal setting where the human being is seen and also treated like a human being and not just as a number in a system. And then also space where you can take on responsibilities, you can test yourself, you can make mistakes, and you can step up.
Welcome back for another episode of The Practical Optimist, where we explore the intersection of leadership and life. I'm your host, Ken Schmidt, founder and CEO of Turning Point Executive Search and author of The Practical Optimist, which you probably know by now is available online in your local bookstores. We also appreciate you subscribing to our podcast, and please don't forget to tell all your friends all about us. I hope you have your passports ready, because today's guest will be taking us halfway around the globe to Germany. Laura Fritz Wilde is the co-founder of Bridging Neighbors, an executive search firm with clients in Germany and the Netherlands. During our discussion, Laura will share her insights about wearing and shedding your corporate jacket. She and I will also talk about how expectations differ greatly around Europe when it comes to motherhood and career aspirations. And she'll also shed some light on the politics of getting results in a corporate environment. Fortunately for us, Laura's English is much better than my German, so sit back and take a listen as Laura Fritz Wilde takes us through the global intersection of leadership and life. Welcome, Laura. Thanks so much for being with us today. I know it's early morning my time in San Diego and late afternoon, early evening your time in Germany, so thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I think it's a perfect time to have this having this conversation.
Exactly. There's a lot going on for both of us right now in terms of growth and expansion, and the recruiting world is, really kind of been going through a bit of a roller coaster over the last couple of years, both here in the U.S. as well as overseas in Europe. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. Yeah. So I'm joined today by Laura Fritz Wilde, who is one of two business partners out of Dusseldorf, Germany. And your company is in the recruiting business, executive search, as am I. And the company is called Bridging Neighbors, Bridging Neighbors. Although partners and neighbors are very, very similar.
Oh, hopefully it is similar.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. So Bridging Neighbors, and you guys, you and your business partner started the company or incorporated back in 2018, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, we were at the Notary 2019, but we started working together in 2017, end of 2017.
Oh, great, yes, great. Okay, gotcha. So right. a lot has happened in those few years, that's for sure. And it's and it's great that, so we actually, for our listeners, so we connected through an organization, a global organization based out of Austria called Talentor. And I've been involved with them now for, I guess, about 4 years, going on 4 years now. And it's been amazing, wow. As a search firm here in the US, based in Southern California, and working so much with domestic companies for the last 16 years. It's been eye-opening. It's also been, very, very kind of inspirational, if you will, to be talking to so many other companies and other search firms around the world, and hearing that, even though there are certain nuances and certainly some differences from country to country, a lot of what we do, a lot of what we're up against, a lot of what we experience as recruiters is the same in every part of the globe. It's amazing.
That's true. Yes. We're a little bit the newbies in the group, I must say. We joined Talentor in 2022, just in the summer zone. It's only been half a year, but I find that network really, truly amazing, because for us, it's the gate into the world, and being more of a boutique firm and a small business here in Düsseldorf, Germany, it gives us the opportunity to exchange thoughts, ideas, expertise with people all around the globe. And that's, something that I've always aimed for. And I like that international setting and that multicultural mingling with people. And Talentor gives us such a good, great base for that, and gives us colleagues all around the world, really.
Yeah, it's great. It's nice knowing that we have someone that we can reach out to and say, hey, I have this issue or this challenge, or I'm thinking about expanding my business and doing this or doing that, and finding out, that many other countries have experienced the same exact thing. We're launching a new strategic HR solutions practice later on this month. And, I was able to talk to 5 different, other country partners around the world through Talentor to get their input and their insights and ideas and challenges that they've been up against that I need to be aware of before we even start our practice. So it's nice to have that, that kind of circle of influence, those other folks that I can reach out to. In terms about the company, I know that you're in growth mode. You've been around for a few years, as we said, but you're growing quite a bit right now. How has that been for you, expanding your team?
Well, it's exciting and challenging at the same time. We are, as I mentioned before, we are a boutique agency, and we're very used to being heavily involved in the operational side of it. We're very close to our customers and have daily touch points with our candidates as well. And we decided growing further also in terms of team. And while you run the operations, you add people to the team and train them and make sure that they have a solid landing and have a good surrounding where they can also be successful. So yes, it's not that you work less, but actually you add a little bit more to your daily task list in adding more to the team, but with always the goal in mind that we have a bigger setting and that we can offer a more stable service also to our clients. Having more hands on deck also means that there's more continuity throughout times of absence, of course, but also being able to deep dive more into different industries. Yes, and maybe a few words about Bridging Aid is that the business idea was actually scribbled into my notebook already in 2011. So
oh wow, it's quite a few years before you actually incorporated.
Until it actually came to life. The reason for that was that I'm German by origin, but I've lived and studied in the Netherlands, and I was there for 12 years in total. And so my whole professional upbringing, so to say, was in the Netherlands, and I was used to the Dutch labor market and quite an international setting and surrounding there. And when I moved back to Germany, I realized we are neighboring countries. And it seems maybe from also a US perspective, Europe, of course, there are a lot of different languages and cultures, but Germany and the Netherlands might seem very similar. And in many cases, that's true, but the devil's always in the detail. So the nuances that we have in terms of pace or in terms of contracts and mindset, culture, expectations, maybe, those are the makers or breakers really in the recruiting processes. So when I moved back to Germany, my idea was that there needs to be a bridge between the countries. When you go from the Netherlands into the German market, how do you get in touch with the German labor force? How do you create that engagement and also the level of trust that you need in order to recruit successfully? So that was just a note in my notebook. And there were more ideas to that never came actually to life. Maybe not yet, maybe in the future, but this was there. It was parked somewhere in the back of my mind. And when I came back to Germany, I didn't start my own business right away, but I engaged with a Swiss company, a machinery organization, quite large scale, big organization. And I gained a couple of years of experience also in their setting up until the moment that I had to change the setting.
Exactly right.
I might need to explain that a little bit, why that happened.
Yeah, I remember we've chatted a few times offline and in person also at different meetings, talking about, how, you're kind of like me, right? If something is too corporate, if it's too stuffy, if it's too limiting, too much status quo, it's just not the right fit. Because I think you and I describe myself as being, more entrepreneurial and always kind of pushing up against the status quo and wanting to be more of an early adopter of things or do something different. And it doesn't always work. Obviously, you try some things and it fails, and that's okay. But then you get back up and you try again. But is that one of the things that drove you to decide to leave that organization?
Partially, I would say, because I think the work setting not always depends on the size of an organization, but it depends on the rules and processes around you. Because also when I worked in the Netherlands, I had the experience in smaller organizations and also in one of the big four consultancies, so 180,000 employees, so colleagues around the world. I mean, it doesn't get much larger usually than that.
Right.
And I had so much freedom in my role back then that I completely enjoyed that as well, even though it was a big organization. So what I experienced throughout my different career steps was that it's a little bit like the seed that you plant in a ground, and not every seed grows in each ground. So you do, ideally, you find out throughout your career which ground you need in order to grow and develop and live up to your full potential that you have. And in the steps that I had, I encountered that I need quite a personal setting where the human being is seen and also treated like a human being and not just as a number in a system. And then also space where you can take on responsibilities, you can test yourself, you can make mistakes, and you can step up and hopefully fail forward and not do the same mistake again. But the larger the set of freedom was that I got, the better I could also exploit myself in it. So when I moved back from the Netherlands to Germany, I was asked to actually do the same set of responsibilities that I used to have in the Netherlands in a small scaling organization, fast-growing IT gaming company. So setting up fast growth and being a top employer in the market, to put that on the label of an international organization. And that international organization had quite a bit of politics involved to it. So there I thought, I felt that much of the work was really in getting the internal stakeholders behind you and believe in your project, instead of getting the project on the road and roll it out and actually make it work. So that was a big difference.
Yeah, okay. The political part of that, yeah.
The political part of it was quite big, and I like to put my energy into achieving results.
Right. Yeah. The goal. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm amazed at some of the larger clients. Right. Exactly. I know. I'm always amazed at some of the larger clients that we work with in years past, not recently, but years past, where, the process of getting to hire somebody, the process of onboarding somebody is just so cumbersome and it's so difficult. And they make it that way really unnecessarily, in large part because they're still operating today as they did when they were a much smaller organization. And a lot of internal policies and internal procedures and those kinds of things just, don't support a company that size. And so it slows everything down. And they tell us they want to hire somebody who's agile and who's entrepreneurial mindset and who has the ability to move things forward and to push back. And then the person gets in there and they realize this is never going to change. They say they want these things, but everything, the whole foundation, the whole infrastructure is built around doing things one way all the time. And it's just, there's not much room for any creativity out there. No,
true.
It's interesting. Wow.
And I saw how much time and resources were wasted. And that's something that I cannot agree with. And I don't want to be part of, really.
Right, exactly. Well, and kudos to you for knowing yourself and having that self-awareness that, hey, like you said, like you described so well before, that you knew that this was not the right ground for you to plant those seeds. This was not going to give you the ability to let those seeds grow, and you're going to be stifled and, probably very frustrated very quickly too. I think a lot of people, may think that or realize that, but they don't really act on it. And they kind of just say, well, yeah, I'm not super happy here. I don't get a chance to really kind of spread my wings and do what I want to do. But it's a job. It's a steady paycheck. It's consistent. It's reliable. So I'll just kind of stick it out. And before they know it, 10, 15, 20 years go by and they just are unhappy for all that time. It's really too bad.
That's true. But maybe also these people lack the proof that you can actually work differently. And maybe people believe that's just how work is. And, you spend your time from Monday to Friday there, 9 to 5, and that's about it. But actually, I think there's more to work than just getting the job done.
Right.
And I was lucky, I must say, I was lucky enough to start off my career in a company that had a different philosophy to work. that had a warm surrounding and a very service-minded mentality towards, it was a recruiting firm as well in the Netherlands, and a very service-oriented towards clients and candidates and their own people. And maybe that was just the position that I was in, but it wasn't, from my perspective back then, it wasn't that profit-driven, but very service-driven. And by putting so much emphasis on the service side and on the well-being and comfortable side of it, it actually made the colleagues stick around much longer than they normally would do in a recruiting firm. But also clients had a very high loyalty towards that company because of they had this likelihood factor. They're just so nice. And also candidates would come back again and again to that company because they felt treated really well. So actually, in fact, I happened to be their candidate, and they would find my first job after university for me. It was a subsidiary of Porsche in the Netherlands. And it all sounded very good and career-wise, and from looking from a CV perspective, it would have made total sense for me to start off there. But I kind of fell in love with the people that were interviewing me, and I thought, well, but this is so nice. And how do I actually apply for a job in your company? I said, well, we don't have an open job slot right now, but you can send your CV to the headquarters, and who knows? And just a week later, they would call me and say, well, we don't have a full job for you, but it's a maternity leave of one of our colleagues. It's only half a year, but if you want, you can go to a job interview. So I went, and it was just such a great and entertaining conversation. And we loved really hard, and I felt at ease with these people. And so I said goodbye, jumped back in my car, and drove back. It was an hour drive to the town that I lived in back then. And they called me just 10 minutes later. They're like, well, we know the process normally with these tests, and you have to do an assessment and 3 rounds and whatever. But we can also just cut the whole stuff and just offer you the job. Would you take it? And I thought, well, thank you so much for that compliment. Give me until my front door to make my decision. So I had another half an hour to drive. And at the front door, I called them back and I said, well, this is really a decision out of my stomach, but I'll do it.
Yeah. Because
I had the intention, with this job, I can test waters for half a year. I meet a lot of different people. I meet a lot of companies.
And your gut instinct was good. You really connected with the people. You liked who you talked to.
I thought, this is going to be a good time anyway, and I will earn money with that, and I earn experience. And just after 2 or 3 months, I was actually doing really well in the company, and I was running their turnover of that office by myself already. So they offered me a full position, unlimited contract, right away, and said, well, would you like to stay? So
interesting.
That's what I did. I stayed for a while, and I think that was just a really smooth, good start into my career and working life, really.
And you, I think in our kind of past conversations that we've had, you've talked about being entrepreneurial and enjoying that. And that kind of growing up, you thought that, your goal was to eventually be self-employed. And you kind of thought that was everybody's goal, right? So when you took this job with a recruiting company, did you have any sense that maybe this would be the industry that you became self-employed in at some point later in life?
Not at all. Not at all. No. No, actually, I never wanted to end up in HR because I thought that was very boring and very administrative. And I wanted to be where the fire is. I wanted to be close to where the deals were made. And so, no, recruiting was not something that I thought is my career path. I stumbled upon it by accident. And I found out by accident that was something that I enjoyed. And being, I believe that when you enjoy something, you will be good at it and you will grow with that. So,
where does that positivity, where did that confidence, right, kind of self-awareness come from? I mean, growing up, because there's a lot of people that grow up and they may have aspirations to do great things, to have their own business, to hire a team, to be in a senior leadership role. But for whatever reason, it doesn't always happen, or they don't allow themselves the opportunities to fail and succeed to eventually get there. But you obviously, it sounds like you were someone who was willing to take a chance, to try a few different things, to figure out what the right fit was for you also. Where did that confidence or that resilience come from?
I think it's a good portion of liking the adventure, being able to take a risk, naiveness. I don't know what could go wrong, so I'm sure it will just go well. So that's and not thinking things through completely sometimes, maybe. So I'm more on the side of let's go, let's try, and if it fails, well, what's the worst that can happen? I don't have the time to think about that, so let's just move. And maybe when looking back at my childhood, there were maybe times that my parents like to travel and very simple, just with a van down to in a tent to exploit countries all over Europe, and we would just hop in a car and go. I mean, they had an idea where we were going, but we were not going the traditional and well paved touristic paths, but more getting in touch with local people. And I think as a kid, I've experienced so many times that these encounters, most of the time, brought something positive. And even if there was a negative note to it, it turned out in the end to something positive. And that's, I think, a positive feedback loop that you get in. And and I've always liked to put myself in situations that I had to work my way through, and it apparently worked then.
Yeah, I love that. You said positive feedback loop, right? You don't hear the word positive mentioned often when you hear the term feedback loop. Usually it's let's get a feedback loop so that we know what's going on. What are our blind spots? What are the problems? What are we missing? But sure. I like how you phrase that. I mean, there also can be a positive feedback loop. What are you doing that's working well? Right? What are you doing to encourage yourself that you should do more of? What have you tried and maybe risked, but it paid off and it went very well? So that positive feedback loop is really important. I love the way that you said that.
Yeah, and that comes then also with dedication and really wanting it to work. I was laid off during the big financial crisis, 2008, 2009. That was a time when pretty much all recruiters in the Netherlands were made redundant because companies were shrinking and laying people off. So who's the first one going out? That was obviously the recruiter. So I was sitting there in Vondel Park, that's in Amsterdam, the big park, and I was watching the people and trying to figure out what to do. So those were the moments also when I was thinking about business ideas already. But from a personal perspective, I wasn't at the stage yet where I had the confidence to go and do it by myself. I somewhat still looked for that setting around me. And that's what often people identify with companies they work with. I've just seen that today a lot in resumes. I'm an ex-Accenture, I'm an ex-Google. So they put that to their name, and that's just the company they have left. So I find it quite interesting that people really label themselves with their previous employers. And having an employer also gives you a certain identity. And I think especially in the first steps of your career, I understand that people need that testing which identity, which jacket of employer fits me best. And at one point you have seen them and you've seen they're all cooked just with water. I don't know if this is an English expression. We would use it here in Germany. But I mean, you can put the glossiest marketing fit around it. But in the end, it comes down to business. And in the end, it comes then down to finding your own identity. And that does come. It sounds really old, or I sound very old, but that comes with life experience also. That you've been a little bit on that end and on the other end as well, and then you move back and forth, and then somewhere in the middle you balance yourself, and that's probably your identity in the spot that you have in life. And at that point, I was able to leave that corporate side and leave these labels and jackets that I've put on, and start for myself. It did came though also with the situation of growing a family. I must admit that as well, because I completely and totally underestimated the impact it will have for me as a woman, becoming a mother and being in the workplace in a European level position. That was something that I underestimated because I said that my professional upbringing in the Netherlands showed me quite an equal side of mother and father duties in the childcare. So I was surrounded by a lot of young parents in my jobs in the Netherlands. And the dads had their daddy day, and the mothers had the mother day, and the other 3 days were covered by daycare. And daycare was from morning to evening. And so everybody worked 4 days or 4.5 days. And I had maybe a grandmother or someone else taking care of the kids as well. But I didn't see such a heavy impact on mothers in their careers. They returned back to the work when the baby was about 3 months old. I never questioned that. That was for me, as not being a mother, completely normal. But then when I moved back to Germany, I realized that the German system worked a little bit different. Here in Germany, it's more accepted that the mothers step out of the work for a year until 3 years. So parental leave is 1 to 3 years.
Wow.
That you take, and that is completely accepted by society. And that's something that you just do. You don't question it. That's just what the mother does. And I thought, well, but that's not for me. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the Dutch way.
Exactly. Right. So, which you had seen work very, very well. Again, back to that whole, positive feedback loop. You saw lots of moms and dads that were balancing their career, balancing their personal, parenthood role also. And it worked very well. So you knew that it could be done.
Absolutely. And I was in the management team in my last position in the Netherlands. So my peers around the table were all guys, but they all had their daddy day. And even the CEO of the company, he had a 4-day week or 4.5-day week. And I saw the blogs where he had to pick up the kids from kindergarten and bring them to school or tennis or hockey or whatever they were doing. At 6 o'clock was dinner time for everybody. So everybody was home by 6 o'clock. And they would open their laptop later on again, which was just the way they did it. So that was for me the normal life of young parents. That was it. And then I came to Germany, and I met my husband, and we became pregnant. I must say we, because I felt really like a joint effort. Because that's what I expected. You're gonna carry that task together.
It wasn't all on your shoulders as the mom alone. Yeah, it was a shared responsibility. Yeah.
It was a shared responsibility, I thought, but the society sees that differently, and also the work environment sees that differently.
Having seen so many great examples of, like you said, young parents doing it and doing a balanced life between the personal and the professional side, and then coming to Germany, getting married, starting to have your own family, and realizing that the way that the German culture was not what you wanted to do. It must have been a little bit difficult to reconcile those two things together.
It was, and it sometimes still is, I must admit.
Sure.
Yes. But there you have to also choose in which country do you live, and what way do you want to proceed, and also how can you twist that to your own needs and your own circumstances in your own little family. So yes, we had also a team effort, both working 80%. But I also saw that in that corporate setting, people were absolutely not used to a young mother still traveling throughout all Europe. But I needed certain adjustments made to the week schedule, meaning that I needed the meetings to take place before 3 or 4 p.m. so that I could participate.
Sure.
And that was something that some of my male colleagues made it very difficult for me. Not my manager, but peers made it difficult. Mm-hmm. And at one point I knew that this problem is so big that I'm not the one changing the rules to the game. So where do I want to put my energy? Mm-hmm. And I decided I will switch the game and make my own rules to it. And that was the moment that I decided I will leave my corporate jacket and I'll start my own company.
And now a short word from our sponsor. If you're a baseball fan like me, you're thrilled that the season is finally back in full swing, and you know how incredibly important it is to field the best team. And not just a team of pitchers, outfielders, or catchers. You need a well-rounded, multifaceted team with a stellar work ethic and strong skills, both technically and culturally, to truly drive results across your organization. Now, most companies don't have the resources of a Major League Baseball team, nor do they have a team of scouts that spend all day, every day, just recruiting new players. That's where Turning Point Executive Search comes in. With over 100 years of combined experience, our team of talent scouts knows where to go and how to attract MVP caliber candidates for every industry and company size across the US. Plain and simple, our placements make a huge impact. So let us help you build a world-class team. And now, back to the conversation.
And I started on my own terms, doing it the way I needed. And there I built my first bridge to the Netherlands, because when I started, actually as a freelance recruiter, that was the first and easiest jump I could make into being independent. And my first assignment was with a Dutch company that was expanding to Germany. And there, I had my entrance point. And it took only 8 months until I met, I actually met Katrin before, but until we sat down and we're discussing opportunities to work together.
That's great.
It was in my mind that when I started off as a freelance recruiter because that would pay my bills right away. But I had that idea that whatever business I would set up, it may grow larger than myself within the first 2 years. That was a sentence in my business plan that I wrote. And then Katrin and I actually met through a club for mompreneurs. So mom and entrepreneur put together mompreneurs. So moms that become independent or work for themselves. And Katrin was running the, I don't know if you call it, or the Düsseldorf chapter. So the local branch of a national, I know that you call it from more the rockers, the motorcycle clubs. They have chapters, right? Yeah. So I see all these moms and cool motorcycles. And so this was a German-wide, or actually DACH-wide organization, and they had local networks as well. And Katrin was responsible for the Düsseldorf network. And because she had just moved to Düsseldorf from Hamburg, so north of Germany to the west of Germany. And in order to meet people, and I thought that was quite a creative and professional way to do it, she engaged in this network and created a network of mompreneurs in Düsseldorf. And I was still employed, but they had their first real life meeting in that co-working environment where I had my desk, because my manager was in Switzerland. So I just jumped in and listened, and we stayed in loose contact, but I thought we had a good connection there.
Sure.
And at a later point, we sat down because she had a career coaching business. So she helped individuals in their career planning and moving the next step in their career. And she asked me a lot of things about recruiting and offered actually to pay me in order to pick my brain. And I thought, wow, that's a very fantastic attitude towards knowledge and towards the worth of knowledge of somebody else. Of course, I never
asking somebody for their input, their feedback. Yeah, exactly. To learn more.
Yes. And just the gesture of offering that, it really left me with a positive impression of our conversation. And we continued after that. Actually, I think a month or two later, we already built our first website together.
I was gonna say, and I know as you were building it, and we've talked in the past about, the challenges sometimes of finding the right business partner, right? And we've all been there. We've had partners that we thought were going to be great. It didn't work out so well, and then we've had other partners that have gone very, very well. And I know I'm curious about kind of how you describe the strengths that you bring to the table compared to the strengths that Katrin brings to the table. Maybe start with her. Mm-hmm. In terms of kind of where did you identify? When did you realize, or what did you see? I guess is a better question. What did you see in her that you knew would complement the strengths that you already brought to the table?
I think today we know exactly what it is. In the starting phase, we didn't, and this was a natural process that was not so planned and not so. Thinking of a good word for that, analyzed in that sense, because we took it more the way how you fall in love, and there needs to be a first spark that you see something, and then we started dating. So we worked in cooperation with each other. So it was still, everybody had his own bank account. She would bill me, I would bill the client, and we built a little bit of common history also together. and tested whether we were, and that just
make sure you're compatible. Yeah. Because I mean, it is a business relationship. It's a business.
Exactly. And then when we knew dating went really well, we engaged, and we set the intention on we should put it on more solid feet and move it away from only my business, because I was the one more facing to the customer, because I was writing the bills to the customer under my first company name. And so we had that intention, okay, this could be bigger. So I got my little notebook out of my drawer again, and I told her about that idea of bridging neighbors, and having, you need a certain niche also in the recruiting market, and how do you differentiate yourself from others, finding your identity, your branding, your personality, your jacket. So she heard about bridging neighbors. She said, this is a fantastic idea. Let's do something with that. And she helped blowing life into that idea and bringing it to actually a business concept to the notary. And that was the moment that we professionally married. So this is in Germany quite a big thing when you set up this organization together, and you create a legal entity. So it's actually giving birth to a new thing, which is legally responsible. It's
official. Yes, it's out there.
It's we're in the books together. I mean, you can see us in the register together. So yes, and throughout that process, you see how can you. I mean, in a sunny day, you will like a lot of people, but after 3 rainy weeks, is it still working? And we saw that we can also be in heavy weather together and manage. And then comes this complementary skill sets that you mentioned, and where I'm maybe stronger on the what I said, this risk-taking, forward move, seeing opportunity, or spotting opportunities, or imagining opportunities. It's always how you define it. She makes sure that things run perfectly well, that are already in place, and that's something that gives stability, that also gives that extra sense of cautiousness in making sure things are very good and solid in place. You have a good foundation, and then you can add another layer of complexity to it.
Yeah, you need that balance for sure, which is exactly why, I use the term practical optimist for me. I mean, you just described it, perfectly. I get the practical side from my mom, where you analyze things, consider all the scenarios, look at the best case and worst case scenario, and just make sure that you're making a realistic, practical decision. But I get that visionary, optimistic, exciting, idea, entrepreneurial kind of mindset, if you will, from my dad's side, where you don't want to miss out on opportunities. You don't want to pass something up. You want to be more risk tolerant as opposed to avoiding risk. And so putting those things together for me has made me, I think, a better entrepreneur. And it sounds very similar to what you're talking about also with the skill set that you and Katrin bring to the table together to create that balance for the two of you.
Absolutely. Yes. And she's, I think she's amazing in putting thoughts to the paper and putting thoughts into words and writing. So she's very skilled blogger, something I hate to write. I mean, these are the practical things also, where it's easier to be in a team of two than just doing it by yourself. And we've been asked this before, what's the success for us is that we have a very big trust in each other, because when we make decisions, we always consider not putting the other one in a disadvantage.
Right, that's great.
We more care for not making it a disadvantage for the other than how can I benefit from it myself. And this is not something that we ever agreed upon, but we feel and we see in how we act, and this gives a lot of comfort that the other one will always take care to not make a situation disadvantageous for you. Sure.
And to back you up if something goes sideways or something goes wrong, or or a client, absolutely. It happens all the time in our business, right? That the other person is not going to blame you or point fingers, but instead is going to try to figure out, how do we fix it? What's the solution to this, as opposed to let's figure out whose fault it is, right? And a lot of folks don't have that. Either they're in a large company and their manager is a very poor leader, right? And the manager tends to take all the credit when things go well, and then point the finger and blame people when things don't go well. And so that employee is kind of stuck in the middle there. And it's just difficult. You have business partners that way, you have employees that way, and you have to find that right balance and be aware enough to know, all right, you know what, this is not how it should be. This is probably not going to change. So I need to change my situation. And like you said, kind of change that corporate jacket and do something different. Otherwise you'll be stuck there for years.
I think that is something that we definitely have in common, that we know that it is always up to us to change a situation, a mood, or whatever you are in. You are the key to the change.
Sure.
And having that always on top of your mind will always put you in charge, and also will always give you opportunities to give a positive twist to things. And you're never a victim of the circumstances, but you can always think, okay, what can I do to make it work or change?
Right, exactly.
I think in our case, we both are also the face to the customer or to the outside, but in different situations, maybe, and in different settings. And I think that even widens the scope that you can have.
Sure. Yeah. So you talked before about, kind of back in 2011 when you kind of jotted down in your journal about the idea for bridging neighbors. What are you jotting down now? What are you writing now? What do you think? Where do you want to take the firm? If you and I are talking, 5 or 10 years from now, what are the things that you have done between now and then that you're now just starting to think about?
I think it's also what we're already not just thinking about, but it's already putting in place, is having a Bridging Neighbors as a very solid team also for potential customers actually all around the globe in entering the German market. Because I think, especially in Europe, the German economy is still one of the biggest and strongest. And we truly believe in also the location Germany as a good ground for companies to expand to. I mean, we have more than 80 million inhabitants. We have a good, how do you say that?
Kind of business climate, or
a good and positive business climate. We're a central location in Europe. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot also that Germany can bring into Europe or the world in contributions. So I think it always goes both ways. So I think then Bridging Neighbors is a gate towards the German labor market in all disciplines. And what I've seen in the first company that I worked for is this central, positive, service-oriented mindset can do good to all involved. And then you have a win-win-win situation, win customer, win candidates, and win employees also, which is also a workplace where, and that brings a little bit my personal struggle that I had in being a parent in the German economy, also a workplace that shows that you can do a hell of a job while also juggling your responsibilities with family. I mean, the moment that you're dedicated to your work, you will always find the moment to get things done, and still having your family at the top priority that it should have, because family is there to stay forever, and a job might change in a couple of years. But I think you can balance both. And I want to be able to show people that that's possible, that you can be a parent and doing a really great job at the same time.
That. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, there's a lot of people say it's either or. You either have to be a good parent and then sacrifice your career or take a step back, or you're very career-minded, very driven, very focused, right, very ambitious, but then you never see your family. And it's a very unfair, binary description where it's either or. Whereas I think there's, like you said, there's a lot of examples out there. You can be both. You can be a great parent and also have a great career. You can be ambitious and want to, have a bigger company or grow your team, what have you, and still go to your kids' soccer practice or go watch them play hockey. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. Now, it takes some management and it takes some support from your whole family, your spouse or whoever is helping you raise the kids. I get that. And it's not just you snap your fingers and it happens quickly, but with some extra effort and with the realization, right, and awareness that you can have both.
And in that thing, probably COVID had that one positive twist to work mentality also, and also seeing kids pop up in video conversations and in a client meeting they walk in, or even on television when you see the news, and a high-level politician has a kid walking in to the screen. I just wish that it will be more equal between men and women. That
I agree.
When men have their kid on their lap during an interview, that's somewhat cute. If a woman does that, that's very unprofessional still. So maybe we get a little bit more to a balance there. But I hope that people regard employees as holistic people with all facets that life has, and not just the workforce that they bring to the table.
Well, I think your metaphor that you said before. Yeah, I agree. And the metaphor that you used before about that corporate jacket or that identity that you talked about, I think that's perfect. It's a great way to describe that for sure. I actually have a chapter in my book the chapter is called "It's Okay to Be Human." I mean, what you just said is so spot on. It's 100% correct that everybody these days should be allowed to and expected to show up to work as a human being, not just a number on a spreadsheet to do tasks from 9 to 5. That's not what work is about anymore. It never should have been that way, but at least now it's finally changing a little bit. And to your point, I think it's accelerated that change thanks to COVID. I mean, not that COVID was a good thing by any stretch, but one small silver lining, that came out of that is that people have reordered their priorities in life. People that used to travel 80% of the time, now they say I'll travel 40%, right? Or companies that were used to buying, from their reps in person, now they say, don't worry about it. You don't have to come visit us in the office. We can buy from you online, or we can do an online demo. So that whole type of interaction has changed and expectation has changed. I think for the better, for the most part. There's still a lot of discussion around how do you as an employer build a cohesive culture? How do you build that camaraderie and that support structure when everybody is working from their home and nobody ever comes to the office? That's difficult. I think you have to spend a lot of time to really build up that kind of a culture with that dynamic. But that being said, again, it's not easy. It's not going to happen with a snap of the finger, but with some energy and some deliberate effort, it can happen and it can work very well long term.
And I absolutely. I fully agree. And I think it's also something that we have to learn over time, that there's a balance between your personal life and work life, and how much personal weather, how much personal issues can you bring into your work life, and where do you need to maybe sometimes close the door and leave personal weather on your personal side, when personal life and business life is so interactive all the time, and you're switching back and forth because you sit at your dinner table with your laptop and you talk to clients. It's sometimes hard keeping your personal weather out of your conversation. Sure. But that's something I think people need to practice, and in the end, that will find a balance in that.
So I know as we wrap up here, as we've discussed in the past, the practical optimist is the phrase that I use for myself, and I describe that, in the book as well. So what are some words? What kind of a phrase would you use to describe yourself, given all the things that we just spent time talking about?
I'm very glad that you warned me up front, and I actually thought about it, and it came to my mind just in the early morning. That's so crystal clear. I'm the eager life lover, and this combines my ambition and my drive and my dedication to grow and develop and reach my goals on the one side, and I'm very disciplined in that. While I love life, and I love a late evening with way too much wine in a bar, and really getting lost in the moment, but also enjoying traveling all over Europe or the world if I'm able to, and seeing the beauty of life and leaving all the eagerness and the ambition and all that aside. And it's a combination from actually both my parents. My mom more on the ambitious, practical side and very structured and having a clear mind on where to go and what to do. And my dad enjoying, he's always with a big smile and enjoying life, and he loves Greece and swimming in the Mediterranean Sea. And when my parents met, my dad took her in a small car over the mountains to Greece, and she had never been there. And he said, "Just hop in the car, come, let's go." That's wow. That's how they're combined, and that's how I was actually, I think, inspired and brought up with both sides. And when you ask my friends from the university time, they say, "Well, we closed down the pub with Laura at night, but she was also the first one at the university in the morning." I don't know if those lessons were the most memorable ones for me, but at least I was present.
Exactly right. You kind of live life till its fullest. That's for sure. You weren't missing any opportunity.
Yes, I'm all in.
Yeah,
when I do something,
right.
I'm
all in. It's good.
Yes. Yes.
all or nothing. You're all in. That's great. I love that. Well, very good. Well, thank you. It's been a great conversation as always. I'm looking forward to seeing you when we both travel to Switzerland in actually next month, which will be great for one of our partner meetings. Looking forward to that in-person conversation and sharing some wine with you also. Should be a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm going to close the pub down, but I will certainly be there quite late. I'm a late night.
Oh, no, I'm an early morning person. So no, we won't meet each other there then.
Right. Exactly. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all your insights. Yeah, likewise. Thanks for the discussion. Thanks for being open to sharing all the different experiences that you've had as well, and kind of where you and Katrin are heading from here. So look forward to hearing about your future successes.